You gonna stay for the video or not, Jims? Hello everyone! If this is your first video at the Finding Ikigai channel, I'm Emma. I'm an American living in the Netherlands with my husband Seb and our two cats, Jimmy and Momo, who's sleeping somewhere else. Long story short, this channel, Finding Ikigai, has been my project to explore finding my ultimate purpose. So Ikigai is a Japanese term referring to purpose, and they determine it based on 4 criteria. So something that you love to do, that you're good at doing, that can make money, and is good for society and the world. If you find something that meets all those 4 things, that's considered your Ikigai, and that's ultimately what I think most of us are in search of, and what I was certainly in search of when I was working in corporate communications for various different kinds of tech companies. And knowing that I somewhat liked what I was doing, just not really the topics that I was writing about. And I also didn't really like the whole corporate world, to be honest. I didn't like needing to dress up fancy and go to an office and have small talk with people every single day, only to have a sliver of that be the actual work. And I had so many other passions on the side, like cats and wanting to start a cat cafe, as well as just traveling and vlogging and singing and space. Space has always been a passion of mine, and I wanted to initially be an astrophysicist. So when I first entered college, that's what I was majoring in, but it quickly proved to be way more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be hard, but I thought that if I studied hard enough, I could make it work. Turns out that I would never have been able to be an astrophysicist. That's just not how my brain works, and it was never going to happen. But anyway, so I gave up on space at the time, but I was hoping that with writing I would be able to at least write about space topics eventually, which is kind of what I'm doing now. So basically I quit my corporate communications job 2 months ago to go freelance as a writer. Although freelance writing was sort of just the means to make money while I pursue my Ikigai in general. I'm not sure what that's gonna look like. It could be that freelance writing is actually it, that I decide I absolutely love freelancing and I love having more flexibility to pick and choose clients that I want to work with. It allows me to travel and work, so it could be that. At the moment, I'm working for the European Space Agency as a 40 hours a week contractor for the next 7 months. So technically I am still freelancing, although this is definitely like the main client for the foreseeable future, because after 7 months, most people just renew and renew and renew and end up contracting for ISA for years. If it becomes this Ikigai, then awesome, and having quit my job and only discovering that 2 months later would mean that it was like the fastest journey to find my Ikigai ever. But if you decide to follow this channel and watch my vlogs about freelancing and exploring my other hobbies, you might come to realize that there's a lot of pros and cons, I think, with everything. So I have no idea where I'm going to be in the next year or so, whether Seb and I will still be living in Amsterdam where we're living now, or in the US, or what other kinds of career we'll be pursuing. So that's what this channel is all about. For this video, I'm not going to be vlogging like I normally do. I'm just going to talk you through all of the steps I took to become a freelancer in the Netherlands. So all of the logistical steps required to register my freelance business here. If you're not in the Netherlands or you already have a registered freelance business, then skip to this time and I'll talk all about the steps I took to launch my business, find new clients, how I priced my services, and all of the rest that comes with starting off this new career. So if you like this video and found it helpful, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and leave some comments. So I hope you enjoy. So with regards to establishing your freelance business in the Netherlands, it's a super easy process. It's only a few steps. But before jumping into the steps, just a couple of terms you'll need to be familiar with is that in the Netherlands, a freelancer is referred to as a ZZP'er. That's just the term for freelancer, but doesn't actually have a legal entity. So you'll need to register as an eenmanszaak, and I'm gonna butcher all of the pronunciation. I've lived here for over 4 years, but it never quite got easier for me. But you'll register as for an eenmanszaak, or sole proprietorship. That's the legal entity for yourself as a ZZP'er. And to do so, you'll need to make an appointment at the Chamber of Commerce, otherwise known as KVK in the Netherlands. And to register for that appointment, all you'll need to do is go to this link You'll find that there's a couple of other links which are just more useful information. For example, you can check that you meet the criteria, although the criteria really only is that you'll be offering a service or some services to more than one client and receive financial compensation in return. So you can visit those links, or you can just scroll to the bottom where you'll need to log in with your DigiD. And if you're a resident of the Netherlands, you should have a DigiD. So once you're in the system, you'll fill out the registration form, and that's where you're going to describe the exact types of services that you're going to be providing, the types of clients that you're going to be having, so you can give more information to the Chamber of Commerce, KVK, about your business. Then you can schedule an appointment with your local KVK office, and they'll send you an email with all the things you'll need to bring with you to your appointment. At the appointment itself, this will be the moment where they actually hand you your business registration number and your VAT number, which is going to be crucial for all of your invoices and whatnot. But they'll first want to go through the registration form that you had just entered previously and just confirm all of the services that you're going to be providing and just ask you a few more questions. Ultimately, they ask you everything that you already answered on the registration form. They'll just ask you again, basically. And here it's important because they'll give your business a code, which I think is just helpful for their own internal system for the most part to categorize you. And in my case, she initially categorized me as like digital marketing services, and when I further elaborated that it's really more about content writing and brand consulting and less of like marketing and creating advertisements, then she actually gave me a different code which was much closer to that. So I do think it's helpful to elaborate as much as possible just so that they have everything accurate in their system. Then once you've answered all of their questions, they will give you a folder with a bunch of useful documents such as a invoice template where they'll show you how to display your business registration number, your KVK number, and your VAT number. And the fee for this appointment and establishing your business is 80 euros, which I believe is tax deductible. And once that's settled, you're ready to go and you're ready to start offering your services and accepting money. So the next step is optional, although if you're anything like me and you barely know how to pay your taxes and every year it gives you anxiety because you don't know if you're doing it correctly, then I would highly recommend getting a bookkeeper/accountant. So there are tons of options out there. I went with Case de Boekhouder because they were the first sponsored ad continuously when I did my Google search, and normally I avoid all the sponsored ads. However, Case de Boekhouder was constantly being recommended on the Americans in the Netherlands Facebook group, on Reddit, as being a very user-friendly, very affordable, or at least fair priced tool. So I scheduled a demo with them, and when I saw how the platform works and that you can actually send your invoices to clients through the platform, so then it's all in one system and you don't have to like re-upload your invoices. So it was the user friendliness of the platform that sold me, as well as that when it comes time to do the quarterly VAT taxes. So when you're a freelance business, you not only have to pay your income tax annually, but you also have to pay your quarterly VAT taxes. And I just didn't know where to begin, and they had assured me that I can contact my bookkeeper as much as I want to within the fixed price, the annual subscription, and that especially during the tax periods, that they are super hands-on and guide you through the whole process. So I just wanted to have the peace of mind that I would be filing my taxes correctly and also taking advantage of whatever tax benefits there are as a freelance writer. So I definitely didn't want to miss out on like money-saving opportunities when taxes here are already so high. There is another option that was widely recommended, which is called Tello, which is funny because I have a friend who works at Tello, and for some reason I did not put two and two together when I went freelance that her company would actually be hugely helpful for my bookkeeping. I just I completely forgot, I guess, that that's what they do. And so I'd already found Case de Boekhouder and I'd already paid my yearly subscription by the time I realized, like, oh my gosh, I should have just asked Kate if it would make sense for me to use Tello. But I have now come to learn that this is also a great option for freelancers. So I highly recommend you check that one out too. And once you have a bookkeeper or not, it's just super important to keep track of all of your invoices and make sure that it's stipulated when the payment is due. Even though I've heard of a lot of horror stories of clients not paying on time, and that a lot of what freelancing is unfortunately just chasing clients to pay. And that's probably just going to be a reality for for most freelancers, but definitely you should still put a payment deadline in the invoice just to have some sense of urgency for sure. It's also important to keep track of your expenses. So for things like any softwares that you're using for your freelancing or any equipment that you may need, for example, my new laptop, I could certainly classify that as a business expense, and then I don't have to pay the taxes on it. So that's really, really helpful. So make sure that you keep track of all of those. Also, just going for a coffee and lunch with potential clients, those are definitely business expenses. It's helping you establish relationships. So I find Case to Boekhouden super useful in that, as it's super easy to just upload my receipts and have it all in one system. So that was everything to do with registering as a freelance business in the Netherlands. And now on to just freelance writing and kicking off my business and how I approached finding new leads. So the first step I took was building my website. And I follow a lot of freelance influencers and LinkedIn influencers, and they'll all tell you that having a strong website with a portfolio showing examples of your work is crucial. Because as a freelancer, you move away from the traditional CV resume and instead you have a portfolio of work. Now that's not always the case. There are tons of job listings that will still ask for a CV even though you're a freelancer. But as someone who was just starting out, I did not care. And I was like, I'll just apply however you want me to apply. And to be honest, some of the biggest gigs that I ended up getting did require a writing assignment and CV, so I'm grateful to those opportunities. So I'm not yet in a position to be really picky about the types of stuff that I'm applying for. But so website was crucial, and I decided to use Wix. I chose Wix because I'm familiar with it, I've used it before, and I had remembered it being quite easy, and especially because they have tons of templates to start off with. As I started off, I also wanted my emmajorna.com domain, and I paid the annual subscription to Wix to also be able to use that domain and just have more of the premium package. I don't even remember what that entailed, but at the time it made sense. So I spent like, I think 180 for the year for Wix basically. And it was only after I paid that I realized I actually really didn't like using Wix. I found it super cumbersome, and that so many things, like simple things like moving columns to be aligned and then incorporating a new photo, but instead of a vertical one I wanted a horizontal one, and those simple tasks were for some reason really hard to figure out in the beginning. I will say now that I've published my website, I find it super easy to go and edit small stuff here and there because I've gotten familiar with the platform, but it was really hard at the start even though I was using a template. Also, I created a whole website only to realize I don't really like the design. I don't think the colors were very professional, so I completely scrapped it and started from scratch. I absolutely think that investing in a strong website, whether you hire someone to make one for you or you just figure it out the way I did, which took like a solid month, it definitely pays off to have a strong website. I have gotten leads directly from my website. They've just discovered me either because they saw the LinkedIn post, which I'll talk about in a second, or they just found me on Google. And with Wix, I have the analytics to see if they're coming from social media or if they're just coming from Google. And so having that strong website can just be that extra edge over all the other freelancers out there. I decided to go with a sort of spacey theme because at the time I had no experience in space writing professionally, but that's the niche that I'm very interested in entering. So I was like, I might as well already adapt that sort of theme, come across as though I am passionate about space, and as such, hopefully people who are also in the space industry can somewhat connect with me. I think that worked considering I'm now working with Isa, but definitely something else that a lot of these freelance influencers will say is to establish your niche. If you're completely starting with no experience, then writing about topics you are interested in is a great way to establish that niche. Or if you're coming from a lot of experience in one field that you're not interested in pursuing furthermore, similar to me in fintech, for example. I had worked for a fintech company and I have no interest in ever writing about fintech again. It's just not my Ikigai whatsoever. I just don't highlight that at all. It's a logo on my website and that's all it is. But instead I try to put myself in the persona of who I really do want to work with, and then try to adapt my writing to target those people. So other things you should consider putting on your website are an About Me page, and that's a nice place to put a bit more about your background as a writer and what you're passionate about and what sets you apart from other writers. In my case, I also mentioned what sets me apart from ChatGPT. I think that that's definitely a hot topic and worth mentioning, because that's going to be on a lot of people's minds as they're looking for a freelancer, is whether or not you'd be better than ChatGPT, basically. I also summarized each of the services that I offer, because people refer to themselves as totally different things. So there's content writers, copywriters, ghost writers, content strategists, communication specialists. The list is endless. And these different terms can be helpful because they are slightly different in the types of services that they offer and the focus, I guess, that individual has. Though in my case, I am technically a few of those different things because of the different experiences that I've had, so I can offer different kinds of services. So I mainly use content writer because I like to write a lot of long form content, so blogs and articles, and this isn't always ghostwriting. For example, I can ghostwrite for founders and write on behalf of them, whether that's a blog or an article or a social media post. But I also can act as a content writer in the sense that I can write newsletters, press releases, website copy, email marketing campaigns, etc. And then I also mentioned that I can do brand and PR consulting. So whether a company is brand new and hasn't really established their whole brand messaging, so their positioning statement, mission statement, etc., I can help come on board, figure out all about their business and industry, and then provide that messaging for them. Or perhaps they're going through a rebrand and want to approach their brand from a different angle, then I can also help them figure out that messaging too. With regards to PR, I can help them prep for an announcement, whether that's writing the press release, but also compiling a press list of relevant journalists and creating the email pitches to send to those journalists. For me, it was definitely important to list all of the specific services that I offer because they're different, because I'm not just a ghostwriter or content writer or copywriter. I can do all of the above, which is the case for a lot of freelancers out there. So just having it plain and simple on your website kind of helps people who have a specific project in mind identify with you being able to deliver on that specific project. Once my website was ready, I prepared a LinkedIn carousel to launch on LinkedIn and announce to the world that I'm now freelance and available for work. I went with the carousel, which is like a sliding PDF, because during my time managing LinkedIn channels for companies, I noticed that carousels have really high engagement, similar to videos, and definitely higher engagement than just text alone or text with the picture, because people really like to click through and tend to click through till the end. So if I really want people noticing my post, then a carousel was likely to do well. To design this carousel, I used Canva. I am a huge fan of Canva. It is so easy to use. You can create anything from a YouTube banner to an infographic to social media posts, and their free version already has so many elements to pull from. The website took me about a month because I was still working in my full-time job, so I was only working on my website like after work and on weekends. The carousel took me about a week also while working for my full-time job, but really if ever there's a time to perfect something and only launch it when you're really happy with it, I think that is the time. Because building off of the momentum of, I quit my job and I'm going freelance, that is such an opportunity to take advantage of, because people love those kinds of posts on LinkedIn, and especially people who know you will be so happy for you and want to support you, and ideally everyone likes your posts and comments. So if you're gonna take advantage of that opportunity, then you might as well do it as best as you can. Just to put things into perspective, it's not like my post went viral or anything, absolutely not. But I did get 12 new LinkedIn connections, almost every single one of them being a startup founder, which is exactly the type of clientele that I was going for. Of the 12 connections, almost half of them reached out to me mentioning that they saw my post and that they're interested in working together, and the other half I followed up with and basically said, hey, thanks for the connection, and I would love to hop on a call and get to know you and your brand a bit better, etc. I managed to schedule one in-person meeting with a startup founder at a really cool tech company, and he was very honest because he was like, right now we have no budget for you, but I just wanted to like make contact and keep you in mind for the future when we ideally have more funding and can really invest in our brand messaging. Another connection from LinkedIn became one of my first few clients. So that post definitely has paid off, and it's still like at the top of my feed. So anyone who is finding me on my website, who's then going to my LinkedIn, also sees that post, which is just another way to summarize what I offer and what sets me apart. So all in all, I can absolutely recommend it. So now that my website is live and my LinkedIn post is out, here are some other things that I did to find leads and just make connections and learn about how to be the best freelance writer I can be. I made a profile on Upwork, which is just one of these platforms. It's similar to Fiverr, where you hire people to do big or small jobs. And I knew that I didn't want Upwork to be my long-term strategy for finding leads, just because I didn't want to have to depend on it. And I'd been hearing that it's not ideal for freelancers, but is a nice way to start off. Within days of having my profile live on Upwork, someone invited me to apply for the job that they had listed, because how Upwork works is that as a freelancer, you actually have to pay to apply for jobs unless someone finds your profile and invites you to apply. And that's what happened to me. So someone invited me to apply and we hopped on a video call and he hired me. And that was a 2,000 euro job for just a week's worth of work. So I was like, very pleasantly surprised that Upwork led to that. I will say it has now been 2 months and I didn't get any other invites to apply for jobs after the fact, and I also haven't been paying the platform to be able to apply, so I kind of just neglected it. And perhaps you can even see when I was last active on the platform, and maybe that's what turns people off, because I have not visited the platform in about 2 months. But hey, it clearly can work if you're lucky. I also decided to follow a couple of freelance writing influencers. I call them influencers. Basically, they're just freelance writers who frequently promote their services and also sell workshops and lessons on how to be a freelance writer yourself. I will already preface with I've unfollowed a couple of these people because I find it a little bit obnoxious how frequently they post and post the same thing. So it becomes very repetitive after a while. Even in my case, I've only been following these people for about 2 months, but I'm growing a bit tired of seeing the exact same types of posts and promotions and constant newsletters in my inbox. However, when you're starting out, it can be really helpful to follow a couple of these people. So some of the people that I followed who I definitely think have a lot of valuable information to get started are Mandy Ellis, Lizzie Davey, and Morgan Short. These are 3 women who are very active on LinkedIn, and if you're open to promoting yourself on LinkedIn as well, you could definitely take a lot of inspiration from how they promote themselves. I'm not sure about Morgan Short, but Lizzie Davey and Mandy Ellis do have newsletters where they offer a lot of helpful tips for freelance writers starting out, as well as promote places where you can actually find freelance gigs. And so I can't remember which newsletter it was, but someone recommended joining the Superpath Slack community. So I had never heard of the Superpath Slack community prior, but after looking into it, it's basically just a big community of a bunch of content creators. So writers, graphic designers, marketeers, SEO specialists, all sorts of content people. Actually, I think there's even 20,000 people in the Slack community at this point. And basically it's a super active community where people are constantly looking for ways to collaborate with each other. For example, if you're a freelancer and you have a ton of work on your plate and you want to work with someone else to kind of help divide and conquer, then there's definitely a lot of people looking to work with others there. There's also a lot of people in the community who are like heads of content and marketing managers at their company, and they need to hire freelancers. So there are constantly new gigs being promoted in that Slack group where you can basically just DM them straight away. And so it's just an easier way to get in touch with people than just on LinkedIn. I will say, while it's a great way to access a bunch of people who are looking for jobs, as well as people who are looking to collaborate or you can just learn from, I've maybe reached out to 10, 12 people in the Superpath community so far, and maybe 8 of them have just never responded. So the few that have responded, I did have really nice initial conversations with. I haven't gotten a client from Superpath yet, but some promising leads for sure. But absolutely, if you're just starting out, this is a great way to also see how other people are pitching themselves, because someone will post a gig and there will be 10 comments, 20 comments of people saying, hey, I'd love to apply for this job, or I think I'd be a great candidate for this job, here's why, blah, 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 blah. So you can absolutely learn from others how to and how not to pitch yourself, because there's some which stand out as like, come on, you didn't really say anything about yourself, and there are others that are really strong, so you can definitely take inspiration. So ultimately, the tool that has been most useful for me in terms of finding new leads has been LinkedIn. So under LinkedIn Jobs, there are tons of listings for freelancers, although most of them are for like 40 hours a week, but for a fixed term. So whether that's 6 months, or 1 year, or you're filling in for a maternity leave cover, for example. So for the company, it's advantageous because they get to remain flexible and not have a full-time person come on indefinitely. And they also don't have to pay for your insurance and your pension, for example. It's also advantageous for you as a freelancer because yes, you'll be working 40 hours a week for one client for a fixed amount of time, but most of the time you can also charge a much higher rate. In my case, I was finding jobs that were double per hour or per month than what I was making full-time. And I really didn't mind having like one main client at a time. Other freelance influencers have advised not to go for those like basically full-time but technically freelance positions. They will say that those are red flags. But for someone like me who's fresh out of working full-time, who would definitely appreciate having a steady income for the next few months while still having flexibility to look for new clients for small projects here and there, or maybe even bigger clients, but that you wouldn't start until this contract is over. So this was actually like a perfect scenario for me. And not only did I find the ISA job on LinkedIn, but there were tons of other interesting opportunities that were very similar. So jobs that were paying double, even triple what I was making full time, but to temporarily fill in for somebody, for example. Before I decided to go freelance, I was just looking for new full-time jobs. I was just over my company and ready for something new. And I was getting no responses from hiring managers. But for these freelance gigs, I was getting a lot of responses. And that could just be because the pool of people who are willing to take on a job, which is only for 6-7 months, is much smaller. Or it could be because people like my website, I don't know. But I was getting way more responses when applying to these freelance roles on LinkedIn. So that was all of my tips for you for kicking off your freelance writing business. I really hope that this video was helpful. It could be that you know all of this already and you're looking for more concrete information. If there's anything that you were looking for that I didn't mention, feel free to drop me a comment and I can totally address it in a future video. I wish everyone the best in their freelance journey. I hope you find success like I have. If you're interested in continuing to follow my journey while finding my Ikigai, because again, freelance writing might not even be it, and it could very well be singing or a cat cafe or crochet. I don't know yet, but it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe. And anyways, thanks for watching.